Welcome to meeting number 14 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Pursuant to Standing Order 108, the committee is meeting today on Report 14, Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, of the 2021 reports of the Auditor General of Canada. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. Regarding the guidelines from the Board of Internal Economy of March 10, 2022, everyone participating in person must wear a mask, except for members of Parliament when they are seated at their place during the proceedings. To ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on the video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. Please keep your microphone muted when you are not speaking. Interpretation for those on Zoom, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English, or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. For members in the room, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. For members participating via Zoom, please use the raised hand function. The committee clerk and I will do the best we can to maintain consolidated order of speaking for all members, and we thank you for your cooperation. In accordance with our routine motion, I am informing the committee that all witnesses have completed the required connection tests in advance of the meeting. I would now like to welcome our witnesses. Welcome, everyone. It's lovely to see you again, second time this week for the Auditor General. Office of the Auditor General, Karen Hogan, Auditor General of Canada, Philippe Legault, Principal, Lucie Desprez, Director, Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario, Madame Brassard, Interim President, Lucie Perreault, Director of Programs, Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, Chris Padfield, Acting Deputy Minister, Linda Cousineau, Vice President, Business Innovation and Community Development, Prairies Economic Development Canada, Dylan Jones, Interim Deputy Minister, Prairies Can, and President of Pacific Can. Hichem Atel Malim, Director General, Sandeep Chima, Chief Financial Officer. Witnesses will have 5 minutes to make their opening statements. Ms. Hogan, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss our report on the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund that was tabled in the House of Commons on the 9th of December. I'd like to point out that this hearing is being held on the non-unceded traditional Anishinaabe lands. I'm accompanied today by Philippe Legault, who's the Interim Deputy, or rather the Auditor General, the Principal. In response to COVID-19, the federal government announced the creation of the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund in April 2020. This fund was managed by the regional development agencies of the federal government throughout Canada. The purpose was to help businesses, companies, and organisations that didn't have access to other federal support programs or emergency funding throughout the pandemic, or which needed additional assistance. Overall, the government allocated over $2 billion to the fund. The purpose of the audit was to determine whether diversifying Western Canada's economic, which is the Economic Development Agency of Ontario, and the Federal Economic Development Initiative in the Northern Ontario, had developed, implemented, and managed the fund in an effective and efficient manner, and whether they were accountable and reported on the expected results. Overall, the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund provided last resort assistance to thousands of businesses and organisations affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to that, according to data supplied by regional development agencies, the program will help to meet the objective of 25% of funds to the tourism sector.
Management of the program was weakened by a lack of efficiency, consistency, fairness, and transparency that may have resulted from the efforts to administer the program quickly. Applicants from different regions of the country faced different requirements because of the various approaches taken by regional development agencies and the agency's different interpretations of the eligibility criteria. We found that as a result of these differences across regions, funding was awarded in some cases to applicants who did not meet all of the eligibility criteria set out under the National Fund, and ineligible expenses were funded. In addition, in some regions, not-for-profit organizations were directly invited to apply for funding without an open call to all potential eligible organizations. We also found that the system put in place to report on the fund's performance relied on inaccurate information for key indicators. For example, the number of jobs maintained was mainly based on information provided by applicants without further verification. In our view, the number of jobs saved was often overstated. The 3 regional development agencies that were covered by our audit expected that between 25 and 42% of the total amount of repayable contributions granted would not be repaid. This is due to the fact that the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund was designed as a last resort funding program and therefore carried increased risks. We made 3 recommendations to the regional development agencies, including one recommendation that we also addressed to Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada. The regional development agencies only partially agreed with our recommendations. Madam Chair, this concludes my opening remarks. We would be pleased to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan. I now call on Mr. Jones to make your opening statement. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members. Happy spring, everyone. My name is Dylan Jones. I'm joining you from Edmonton, which is Treaty 6 territory and within the Métis homelands. I'm the president of PacifiCan and the interim president of PrairiesCan. These are the successors to WD, Western Economic Diversification Canada, which delivered the RRF in the 4 Western provinces. The RRF was, as the Auditor General has noted, an urgent relief program that targeted businesses and organizations that did not qualify for other pandemic support programs. It was a backstop program. It launched with almost $1 billion for regions across the country and was recapitalized twice to a total value of over $2 billion to deal with unprecedented need. This was emergency funding to help eligible businesses pay their bills and pay their employees at a time when their revenues were significantly reduced. The program created certainty for thousands of families and hope for the future. From conception to delivery, the RRF took less than 7 weeks to stand up. In Western Canada, the pandemic arrived just as key sectors of the economy were reeling from depressed energy prices and international trade shocks to our exporters. And, you know, it wasn't just oil and gas. We had across a broad range of commodities, problems in global sales. And, businesses were very vulnerable in Western Canada at the outset of this. That's why demand for the RRF in the West exceeded all other regions of the country combined. WD took swift action to provide more than $700 million to 10,000 businesses and organizations. And just to give you some examples, we supported individual businesses like Rocky Mountain Flatbread, a family pizza and pasta restaurant with locations in Alberta and BC. They used RRF funds to develop a home pizza kit and start growing their own salad sprouts, which they now sell to other restaurants. As you know, a portion of the fund was set aside for tourism businesses. We were able to support the tunnels of Moose Jaw to retain staff, renovate, and prepare for when the attraction could reopen. The reduced risk of permanent closure kept key employees of this year-round tourist attraction working, but also hopeful. And I have to say, I really felt like we were in the hope business throughout this crisis. I would like to note that in Western Canada, many underrepresented groups were funded at a rate that was significantly higher than their representation in the Western market. Rural RRF approvals counted for more than double the percentage of rural small and medium-sized enterprises. Women-owned businesses were approved for RRF triple RF funding at a rate that was 1.5 times the percentage of women-owned businesses in the population. On the Indigenous front, a similar story, twice the baseline percentage. Altogether, the triple RF in the West supported over 2,700 women-owned businesses, 349 Indigenous-owned businesses, at least 97 official language minority community businesses, and at least 74 LGBTQ+ owned businesses. That's a snapshot of how the program was implemented in the West. The picture looks different in other regions of the country, and for good reason. Canada is a big country, and it's not the same everywhere. RDAs designed their rollouts of triple RF to maximize speed and local accessibility. Given the urgent need to quickly deliver this funding, it made sense to use existing application processes already available and with which customers and clients were already familiar. The Auditor General has made some recommendations that we will act on. For instance, improving the consistency of measurement reporting. Lessons learned will inform the design of performance measurement strategies for future initiatives of this urgent nature. And we appreciate the work of the Auditor General. We're always happy to learn and to improve. I will close by noting that the Auditor General found the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund was successful at providing last resort assistance to thousands of businesses and organizations affected by COVID. Indeed, the triple RF largely did the job it was designed to do, and it did so under pressing circumstances and quickly. Businesses continued operating, and Canadians kept their jobs in a volatile time. The people of Pacific Can and Prairies Can, the public servants who delivered this program, were incredibly thankful and humbled by the opportunity to help others. Thank you.
Thank you. And we now move on to Manon Broussard.
Good morning. Bonjour. It is my privilege to appear before this committee today. I would start by saying that I am joining you from Gatineau, which is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. I'm here in my capacity as FedNor's interim president. As noted in the Auditor General's report, FedNor was previously an initiative under the Department of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development. FedNor was established as a standalone regional development agency on August 12, 2021, and I joined FedNor on that date. I'm pleased to talk to you about FedNor's experience in delivering the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, the triple RF, in Northern Ontario, and the agency's response to the Auditor General's audit. The audit has provided input that will help us better serve Canadians when implementing national programming. FedNor was able to deliver the triple RF quickly and effectively, thanks to the proven and established processes and mechanisms built into its system and the dedication of its employees. Dans le nord de l'Ontario, la pandémie de
In Northern Ontario, the COVID-19 pandemic has had wide-ranging impacts on local economies, affecting businesses and communities that in many cases depend on single industries. The RRRF has been vital for one of the hardest hit sectors in Northern Ontario, the tourism sector. The region's tourism products are primarily geared towards the American market and tend to attract tourists who are seeking to experience the great outdoors. With the extended closure of the United States border, the industry found itself in a precarious situation and its very survival was at stake.
was perhaps the most hard-hit sector. It was not the only one. As a result, there was significant demand for supporting through the RRF from the manufacturing sector and those businesses engaged in agriculture, forestry, hunting, and fishing, all which were significantly impacted. Funding offered through the region's community future organizations supported rural Main Street and businesses and small and micro enterprises located in communities across Northern Ontario, including those Indigenous, rural, and remote. FedNor took swift action and with the 24 community futures organizations delivered more than $100 million across the region, effectively providing support to key sectors like tourism, agri-food, manufacturing, and contributing to the economic stability and well-being of the region. In total, more than 1,200 businesses and organizations benefited from RRF in the region. More than 30% of our total funding went to support tourism. Approvals for women majority-owned or led businesses is almost double the percentage of women majority-owned or led SMEs in the business population. Approval for Indigenous-owned or majority-owned applicants were over 1.5 times the percentage of Indigenous-owned or majority-owned SMEs in the business population. The audit process, which took place as FedNor and its partner RDAs were still delivering the RRF, enabled FedNor to work with other audited RDAs to quickly respond to concerns. It also provided valuable recommendations to help us better serve Canadians. L'agence a cherché à améliorer.
The agency immediately sought to improve its practices and has already taken action to address the recommendations of the audit report. In fact, lessons learned from the delivery of the program and the audit process have been applied to Budget 2021 programs.
To better serve Canadians, FedNor and the audited RDAs will continue to move forward on our action plan, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Brassard. And we now turn to Chris Padfield.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good morning, committee members, Ms. Hogan, Mr. Jones, and Madame Brassard. Thank you to the committee for the invitation. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm participating today from Ottawa, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin Nation. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of Ms. Nancy Gardner as the acting president of the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, or FedDev Ontario as it's known, to participate in your study on Report 14, the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. I'm joined today by my colleague Linda Cuisinot, Vice President, Business Innovation Community Development. FedDev Ontario est l'agence de développement régional.
FedDev Ontario is the regional development agency responsible for managing RRF in Southern Ontario. At the outset of the pandemic, when it became clear how badly Canadian businesses and communities would be impacted by restrictions to keep Canadians safe, Canada's RDAs quickly pivoted to design and deliver the RRF
tool to help businesses and organizations mitigate pandemic-related financial pressures. It also provided an important backstop to other federal business supports, such as the wage and rent subsidies and the Canadian Emergency Business Account. We thank the Auditor General for her work and the work of her team. We're pleased to see the recognition that the RRF's design aligned with the government's objectives for helping businesses and organizations deal with the impact of the pandemic and addressed gaps not covered by other COVID relief programs. The report also acknowledged that leveraging existing experience and systems, as well as the direction to accept greater risks, allowed the RDAs to design and deploy the program within weeks of the onset of the pandemic. Southern Ontario is a key driver of Canada's economic growth, representing more than 39% of the country's GDP and employment. The region, however, was hard hit by the pandemic. More than 1 million jobs were lost in Southern Ontario by April 2020. To provide critical support to small businesses and their employees when it was needed most, FedDev Ontario was allocated more than $500 million to deliver the RRF in Southern Ontario. La mise en œuvre de la FRR par
FedDev Ontario's direct delivery of RRF provided relief to more than 1,300 businesses across the region. We also worked with Community Futures Development Corporations to provide targeted relief to over 1,950 rural small businesses. In addition, to maximise the program's reach and impact, we worked with regional partners to provide targeted support that reached over 39,000 small businesses, including sectors hardest hit by the pandemic, as well as underrepresented groups that were disproportionately affected.
The RRF in Southern Ontario showed that funding was provided to businesses that needed it most. Almost $160 million supporting Southern Ontario's tourism businesses, surpassing the commitment to provide at least 25% of RRF funds to the hardest hit tourism sector. More than $150 million supporting women-owned or operated businesses, and $10 million supporting Indigenous businesses, and more than 140 supporting rural areas. The Auditor General's report noted that overall the RRF was successful at providing the last resort assistance to thousands of businesses and organizations affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Work is underway to address each of the recommendations, and the audited RDAs developed a detailed response and action plan. We've taken steps to continue to look for ways to better support underrepresented groups. For example, based on the GBA Plus analysis, dedicated funding was set aside for Indigenous businesses under the Tourism Relief Fund. Activities that foster inclusive recovery are also being prioritized in delivery of the Jobs and Growth Fund. We agree that it'd be helpful to examine practical ways to improve transparency in the future, and when appropriate, leverage common regional development agency approaches to program delivery, assessment, and approval. Les RDA ont été établis pour
RDAs were established to be place-based and reflective of the regions they serve. Delivery of national programs by RDAs should of course be coordinated, but also delivered in a way that is reflective of each region's unique needs and circumstances. Harmonising processes to accurately report on program outcomes is an area for further improvement. Lessons learned from the RRF will inform the design of performance measurement strategies for future initiatives. Since the spring of 2021, all new initiatives delivered by multiple RDAs have been developed to foster harmonisation of program indicators and the collection of data.
We'll work with our RDA colleagues to take the lessons from the delivery of RRF during this unprecedented time to refine and improve our approaches to supporting businesses and organizations in our regions. In closing, Madam Chair, I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of the public servants within our organization to quickly design and deliver this program, while themselves navigating a once in a generation pandemic. During an extraordinary and uncertain period, they successfully worked together to provide timely support that helped make sure that businesses could keep operating and employing Canadians. Thank you, et merci.
Thank you, Mr. Padfield. I too hope that this will be only a once-in-a-generation pandemic, and I would like to acknowledge both the efforts of the public servants during this challenging time and also the work of the Office of the Auditor General in the delivery of this report. We now proceed to the first round of questioning for 6 minutes. Mr. Lawrence, please go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you to the witnesses for appearing today and for your work throughout the pandemic. Much appreciated all your efforts, and thank you to the chair for filling in today for Mr. Williamson. Much appreciated. I just want to start out with a brief statement, then I'll get into my question. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, but I'll continue on. It's manageable. I believe that a robust economic development department is absolutely critical to a prosperous economy because it spurs innovation in both the public and private sector. Throughout the world, we've seen numerous examples in Europe and Asia, and even some states, even some of the states in America, where they've worked through impressive public-private collaboration and an unrelenting commitment to results. Economies have been materially lifted by competent, agile economic development departments. Unfortunately for Canada, I fear we're not there yet, as we appear to be both a laggard in innovation and economic development. As a starting point for reform and improvement, accurate information will be required to be the foundation for critical decisions that will be made in the coming years to reform Canada's economic development investments. To that end, I'm deeply troubled by the inaccurate information that was revealed in the Auditor General's report. One of the key metrics in determining the success of taxpayers' investments is jobs maintained or created. Could the Auditor General please enlighten this committee on her thoughts and maybe expand on her earlier comments with respect to how accurate the reporting of jobs maintained and created by the CFDCs were?
You're absolutely right that having accurate information is always needed to make well-informed decision-making. And in this case, it's needed in order to demonstrate that the outcomes of the program were properly achieved. What we noted in the audit was that the information that was being gathered when it came to demonstrating what jobs would be maintained as a result of receiving the funding was often overstated. The applicants were just taken at face value. There was very little challenge function. We noted a few examples that in one case, an agency indicated that 200 jobs would be maintained when a recipient received only $60,000. At times, there were forms that indicated that more jobs would be maintained than the applicant had indicated they had employees. And so it was really evident that a challenge function was needed, and it concluded us to believe that it was often overstated how many jobs were being maintained by the funding deployed.
Thank you very much. And my same question to the representatives of the federal development agencies. Will maybe start with you, Mr. Padfield, but any one of you are welcome to comment. How would it be that you would actually have more jobs created or maintained than actually exist at the given time there? There were a number of glaring inaccuracies, or at least appeared to be glaring inaccuracies. How did that happen, and were you as disappointed as I was in the reporting of such document numbers?
Sure, I can start. No, I don't think there were. I think there were occasionally a few one-off discrepancies in that regard. But I think it's a multi-stage process for reassessing those job numbers. And I think it's important to understand within the program that the job numbers weren't actually an indicator that was used in the choice of which projects were funded or not. It's an indicator of the outcome afterwards. And there's a two-stage review in terms of how job estimates are calculated, right? Initial assessments from the companies, and then as we close out files, they're further evaluated. But the core information that was used in terms of the evaluation of the projects, their costs, the detailed analysis in terms of what was eligible, whether or not they'd received funding from other things. I think we had a fair degree of accuracy in terms of those discussions.
Yeah, my challenge, so sorry, and just my time is short here. My challenge, Mr. Padfield, is I want to use these numbers going forward. I candidly think you all can have a huge role in the economy going forward and being extremely beneficial. But it is very hard to make those decisions when numbers aren't solid. And so when we look at these, you have to agree, even if they're one-offs, and the auditor didn't review every transaction, regardless of where they were used, when the ministers are looking at this in the government and they're trying to make decisions, and you see these claims of jobs that clearly can't be true. For example, an agency indicated that over 200 jobs would be maintained for a recipient receiving less than $60,000. Another one, in the case of applications for funding, the agency simply reported the number of jobs as the total numbers of employees that the business received funding, meaning that they said, okay, well, because you got the money, you would have gone bankrupt without it, and therefore we're going to report all your jobs. These are troubling, and like I said, I want the government to have accurate information so that they can make the best decisions possible. And to just say that this is a one-off or that funding allocations, like that's troubling and challenging. And would you also please table the formulas for the calculation of jobs as well? Would you be good to do that for us?
A very short answer, please. 15 seconds.
Great. We didn't use a formula. The job numbers were provided by the individual organizations at the first go around with their application estimates, and they're further reviewed after.
Thank you. We move now to Mr. Fragiskatos for 6 minutes.
Well, thanks very much, Chair. Great to be with colleagues again and to hear the presentations this morning. My first question will go to FedDev. I mean, it could go to any of the respective agencies, but FedDev is the one that has supported my region through this particular fund and in other ways over the years. I look at a press release that came out around the time when regional relief and recovery was really being implemented. Two businesses I'll point to, one in London, one down the road in Ingersoll, Ontario. This is for Ursa Manufacturing, as the release reads, and I quote, the RRRF, the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, has helped Ursa cover its short-term fixed operating costs and diversify into non-auto markets, keeping the company in business. As for the other business in Ingersoll, it's Choco Latte, an artisan chocolate and premium tea retail shop, as is described. Here, the funding was delivered in partnership with Community Futures Oxford. It, quote, provided working capital to help the company with its cash flow needs. So we've heard the phrase last resort assistance mentioned a few times here today. To Mr. Padfield, if this fund did not exist, is it reasonable to assume that these businesses simply would not have been able to survive? Let me just be that blunt about it.
I think they would have been challenged in a lot of circumstances. You have to understand, to get to our program, you had to have gone through and either exhausted or been ineligible for all the other relief programming that was available. So in many of these circumstances, the companies, we were the lender of last resort within the federal frame of supports. So, that you've exhausted the HASCAP, the BCAP, the CEBA, and the wage subsidy, the rent subsidy, and have either been ineligible those for one reason or another, or you've had costs in excess of that. So we were able to provide funding to tailor to specific needs and circumstances where a company may have been more impacted than another.
Thank you very much for that. I'll stick with Mr. Padfield. The Digital Main Street program. I know this supported businesses in my own community and many other communities as well. Could you expand on how that program worked and the support that it offered to businesses in need?
Yeah, we were really excited to be able to partner with the Ontario Business Improvement Area Association, the Toronto Business Improvement Area Association, the Communitech, and Invest Ottawa to provide a multi-layer support. I think it's important to realize that the Regional Relief and Recovery Program was about one side about relief, but also about recovery and being able to be prepared for when the pandemic ended. A number of companies did not have digital presence. The Digital Main Street program worked directly with communities and with Main Street businesses to help get them online. And with a small grant of $2,500, we were able to support 30,000 different businesses across Southern Ontario through this program. And let's do things. There's a really interesting company here in Ottawa that I thought was a great example of this. It was the Hippie Milk, it's called, and it's a non-dairy, it's a plant-based milk company. They were able to go from being a farmers market-based company, of course all the farmers markets were closed during the pandemic, to being able to move to an online business so that they're now an online/delivery business, and they've actually increased their revenues thanks to the Digital Main Street program we were able to develop with our partnerships across the region.
Thank you very much. This I think, probably final question, if I'm looking at the chair and mindful of time, we'll go to all three of you, to Mr. Jones, Padfield, and Ms. Brassard. In terms of lessons learned, can we expect regional economic development agencies to better coordinate going forward? I'm not just talking about during the pandemic, which we're still in, but on a go-forward basis to ensure consistency of outcome. Are there lessons learned here in terms of the need for the agencies to coordinate as far as having consistent eligibility criteria, driving for consistent outcomes overall? One of the things that comes out in the report, and as we heard in the presentation this morning from the Auditor General, is that does not appear to have been much coordination between agencies. Now, I realize that probably has a lot to do, if not everything to do, with the fact that this program was introduced at lightning speed to deal with something that was completely unseen before. And so that's understandable from one perspective, but I would hope that there would be a lesson learned as far as coordination and coordination between agencies, between bureaucracy. And maybe we'll start with Mr. Padfield and go to the others too.
Yeah, I think since we launched the RRF, we've moved on and we've been delivering a host of recovery projects. And across the regional development agencies, we've established Tiger teams to work together on the implementation of these, ensuring that we've got common look and feel, and that we're looking and tracking data in a consistent way across the agencies. So there's a lot of back office work going on across the regional development and agencies to make sure that we are collecting similar information around the programs and doing so in a joint manner.
Thank you, Mitch, very much. Ms. Brassard?
A very short
I agree
answer.
with what Chris Padfield has said. We are concerning a lot more. Merci.
Yeah, just I would just add, there are, on a practical level, things like a good example here is the definition of tourism. It seems obvious that we should be defining tourism in the same way, but it's actually stunningly difficult. Is a restaurant on the border of a tourism, area a tourism business or not? And depending on what definition you use, how would you assess it? Because the next question then is are you,
Mr.
what
Jones,
proof are you
and
using?
I do believe you may have some
And
technical
what burdens are you
issues
creating? This stuff. Yep.
on your end. We now,
I see. It
thank you, Mr. Jones.
looks like.
I don't know if he can hear us. Oh, yeah. Mr. Jones, thank you very much. We now move on to Monsieur Lemire for 6
Merci
minutes.
beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, and thank you to all the members for welcoming me here as a replacement today. It's an honour for me to be here, especially as part of this study, because you'll recall the beginning of the pandemic as a member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue, which is very much like the area that is covered by FedNor. There were major needs in our businesses, and a lot of agricultural producers that fell between the cracks of the federal programs. And I called on Minister Joly at the time and told her that we need something to release funds very quickly, but also to have support programs. And for me, the CFDC's network was the ideal thing in Abitibi-Témiscamingue to release that money quickly to avoid bankruptcies. And according to a study in 2022, there have been a lot of bankruptcies, and we're still not out of the woods, and not all businesses and companies are back at cruising speed. I'd like to take the time to congratulate our RDAs, especially those in our region, for the excellent work that they've done. This has meant that money has been made available to save our businesses in the regions. And for me, a program like that one was a tremendous strength. Ms. Hogan, a question for you. In your report, you said that each regional development agency developed its own application form and had its own evaluation criteria for the RRF. And this acronym is already used in Quebec, and so there's a bit of confusion, unfortunately, in the regions when this word RRF is used, because it's used, as I just said, for two different programs. So there were applications which were considered uneligible for no particular region, but the fact is that these programs are wonderful in the sense that they're tailored to particular needs. Often federal programs are based on big corporations, and yet the Quebec economy and the rural economy is based mainly on SMEs. So it's good that these programs are tailored to their regions, and I think that that's one of the strengths of those programs. What are your thoughts on that? Response: I agree with you, and that is why the regional development agencies were created, in fact. It was out of recognition that the regions have very different realities and very different priorities. Now, if you look at the program, it didn't exist prior to the pandemic, that had to be tweaked for the pandemic. It was created during the pandemic for the purposes of the pandemic. It's a pan-Canadian program with very clear national criteria. We would have expected that the eligibility criteria would have been applied consistently across Canada, and that then that the assets and qualities of each and every region would be used then to tweak the program as a result. But, you know, it should have been consistent across the board when it came to eligibility, and the program was developed with that intention, in fact. Thank you very much. I'd like to hear from Ms. Brassard on that question. FedNor is oftentimes we see in our regional newspapers news about FedNor and its action. So I think that you have an opportunity now to have a real footprint in our region. And one challenge that I face in Abitibi-Témiscamingue is there doesn't seem to be programs for companies that want to for example, process and further process goods. So at FedNor, do you enjoy some kind of flexibility so that you can invest in those kinds of companies?
Vous êtes en sourdine.
You're on mute, Ms. Brassard. I'm sorry about that. After 2 years, I should be used to that. My apologies. Yes, flexibility is crucial. Our national objectives have been applied and the criteria overall have been met. But I agree when it comes to definitions. They need to be consistent. You're perhaps aware that I'm the president of Economic Development Canada for the Quebec regions, and there are programs for further processing available under that program too. But the important thing is to be flexible within the framework so that there can be consistent application. In Northern Ontario, where I currently am, we've placed a lot of importance on projects with Indigenous peoples and also industrial development and tourism development. They're the greatest needs in Northern Ontario, and that's where our focus has been. Along with the CFDCs, well, we've divvied up the work with them as well. FedNor has focused on some SMEs in some sectors and has shared the work with the CFDCs, which is the second pillar of the program. There was the money for the agency and the money set aside for the CFDC. So we have worked hand in hand to make things easier for them, for us, and most importantly, for our clientele that needed easy access to those funds. Thank you very much. I'll reach out to you at some point if that's okay.
And we now move on to Mr. Desjardins for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thanks to all the colleagues for their good questions so far. I do understand, however, this was a difficult period for every single of the regional development agencies, and of course the Auditor General. You've had a difficult job, I'm sure, collecting data in some instances where data was missing. And so I do want to recognize that, and I have a few questions to clarify some of the data gaps that I noticed in some of the review, very similar to Mr. Lawrence and my concern with how this program, in fact, impacted particular regions. I'm from Alberta, and so I'm from Edmonton, and it's good to know that Mr. Jones is present here. I've never had the opportunity to meet Mr. Jones, and I've worked in the Indigenous sector for 6 years in Alberta, and it's the first time I've ever met you. So there's going to be a target on the particular questions here for you to make sure that we can get some clarification on behalf of your statements and the glaring discrepancy between the report. And so I listened to your statements early on, and they sounded very promising, but I do think there was some interesting positioning and interesting language you used to avoid some of the particular instances and glaring facts related to this report. So I'd like to turn the attention of the Auditor General and Mr. Jones to Exhibit 14.4, businesses led by members of underrepresented groups made by various proportions of approved applicants. In that section, you'll see that there's a comparison graph of 3 different agencies: Northern Ontario, Southern Ontario, and Western Economic Diversification. Within that, you'll see that Western Economic Diversification failed to report youth as one of the categories for this study. And I also want to point out that out of the percentage granted to Indigenous people, it was 2% under the first stream. Could perhaps the Auditor General, and then followed by Mr. Jones, explain why this graph and the information presented here is so different than the statements made by Mr. Jones? Auditor General?
I'm not sure that I can explain why Mr. Jones made different statements. What I can do is explain to you what we found in our audit. And in our audit here, we were able to highlight for you with this graph the type of information that was gathered typically through self-identification application forms. We looked at this information as we were auditing how the regional development agencies applied a GBA plus lens to the program. And what we found is that while they gathered this information, it was rarely used to inform decision making. And all I can provide you with is the data that we had. So in some instances, Western Economic Diversification did not gather that data, and so we could not include it in the chart. I think the rest of your questions should be directed to Mr. Jones.
Just one portion there, if you can, Auditor General. I have you on this portion. Did the Western Economic Diversification report to the Auditor General any information related to youth in terms of their participation?
So as I mentioned, we gathered the data that came off of the self-identifications of the application forms, and we did not see any information about youth, which is why it's not included in the chart.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jones, could you please tell my honorable colleagues and I why the ministry or the Western Diversification failed to report youth? And then I'll follow up my second question.
So thank you for the question. I hope the sound is working now, is it? Okay, perfect. So first, I should just clarify that the final reports from proponents will be coming in this month, right? So everything will be in-house, I think, by the end of April. So there will be better data. And this audit was conducted like in the life of the program. So
to be very clear, Mr. Jones, there's other agencies here that were able to satisfy the request to the Auditor General. I'm trying to state that there has to be consistency across the board on some of this reporting, and it's not appropriate to see Western Diversification take such a lack of reporting when we've seen the very same from Northern Ontario and Southern Ontario. So I can't accept that response that you're not collecting time. That there's other agencies that are doing this work. I need to know why the agency of Western Diversification did not report this.
So there will be better data as we move forward. In addition, we were facing or expecting a much higher level of volume. And indeed we had that. I mean, we had 10,000 projects, whereas other agents were dealing with much smaller volumes. We took an approach, which I think we wouldn't do it the same way again, right? But we took an approach of having a very streamlined application process, not just to reduce the administrative burden on us because we were expecting a wave, which we got, but also to reduce the burden on applicants. And we went very narrow at the beginning of this program. The other, in terms of what we collected, we went too narrow. We would say too narrow. The other thing was no one expected this to go on for 2 years. We were all thinking, it's easy in hindsight, but we were all thinking this was a 3-month program. We needed to get it out quickly. We were going to get a wave of applications. We would have time to gather more data afterwards. But our whole philosophy when we came at the front of this was to be very lean, right? And to help absolutely everyone, right? So our basic philosophy
in response to that, and I have limited time. In regards to the Indigenous portion, so there was a reporting for 2% of Indigenous funding here. Why wasn't it larger, considering there was such a demand?
Yes. So the real issue here is that we have a ton of work to do to grow the number of Indigenous-owned businesses in Western Canada. So our project approval for Indigenous was 2.8%. That's nowhere near the population of Indigenous people in Western Canada. So in a way, that's disappointing. It's also twice the rate of Indigenous-owned businesses, because Indigenous-owned businesses are about half that proportionally in the SME population. So the point is we did well if you compare us against the status quo of Indigenous business.
That's what I'm saying. That kind of logic is inaccurate.
Mr. Desjardins, you can carry on at the next round. And we now move on to the second round for 5 minutes. And Mr. Duncan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Ms. Hogan, on some of the funding distributions, there was a general amount announced for the RRF program. Did you get any information, or do you have the information on the formula that was used to distribute the money to the respective agencies, and then further to that, how it was split maybe to sub-partners or local partners at all? Do you have that information or brass that at all?
During our audit, we looked at how it was allocated, the funding was allocated through the regional development agencies. We actually have a chart, Exhibit 4.2, that sort of gives you that layout. We noted that they looked at demographic information, but often economic factors were factored into how the allocation was done. We saw no concerns with how the allocation was done, and hence didn't dig too much further into it.
Thank you. And then to Mr. Padfield, as a member from Eastern Ontario, I'll direct some of my questions to the experience as an MP in Southern Ontario here. I've had some members that had commented that the local Community Futures program was ready to accept funding, but was very slow to receive it from FedDev. And when it did, it only received a small amount. Despite the RRF being awarded a large sum of money overall, I believe initially it was $962 million that increased to $2 billion. The money that was given to frontline agencies to administer the program was smaller than they anticipated. Just wondering, and one of the other things as well was noted in the report, it was interesting, there was obviously a large subscription into these programs and they couldn't accommodate all of it, yet at the end of the year there was money still left over. Just wondering, and maybe talk about the process, if the staff and infrastructure at Community Futures programs have been around for the last 30 years, what was the delay in getting funds to them, and particularly surplus funds that were still left on the table at the end of the year?
Great. The CFTCs were a really important partner for us. We did give them, in fact, $83 million out of the $500 million that came into FedDev. They moved very quickly on the ground to support 1,950 different SMEs across the region. So they were a critical partner for our organization. I think we moved very quickly across the board to get this program set up in an operation. I know everybody was eager to get things rolling, but I think we were up and rolling in very few weeks, and the CFTCs were quickly on side to help and support, and we're critical partners across the board on this.
One of the challenges I think has been raised before was some of the unclear eligibility criteria. On the Auditor General's report on page 3, the eligibility criteria was often unclear where funding was awarded to recipients that were ineligible. But going more specifically, there were some cases involving, again, the Community Futures program. They were unaware of some of the nuances of the eligibility program, specifically that recipients that applied for both the RRF program and CEBA, for example, could only claim the $20,000 in forgivable for one program, not both. Many of these businesses were unaware of these details, and they weren't provided to them and were not provided by the department. So by the time the contracts were already lined up and money was awarded, businesses found out that they thought they would be forgiven $40,000 when in fact it was only $20,000, obviously a major financial consideration or strain or challenge for them. This was devastating for many businesses, and they actually had to repay much more than they initially thought and budgeted for. Mr. Padfield, can you explain kind of how some of that miscommunication or clarification happened, and then how many businesses this impacted, and if you heard that as a complaint or a challenge in the process?
If it was a complaint or a challenge, it would have been very early on. I think things got smoothed out quite a bit. I think to Mr. Jones's point, I think while we talk about the RRF and you talk about it sort of running from May 2020 to moving to closing up in June 2021, it was in effect sort of 4 chunks of the program, right? And we adjusted the program as again, we're at the bottom of the rung, along with our CFTC partners, between changes that happened to CEBA, to the wage subsidy, to the rent subsidy. And so our program, while we had to change to adapt to all those changes as it went along. As you know, CEBA was worth $40,000 at the beginning. As the pandemic lingered and more needs were increased, it moved to $60,000. So we likewise had to move our programming to reflect that, where we were copying the CEBA type loans, and to work with the CFTCs to do similar. So throughout that, that period from May 2020 to June 2021, that program evolved at 4 different periods. And so we work closely with our CFTC colleagues as the overall package and portfolio of federal supports change. Being the lender of last resort in that regard and that safety net, we had to adjust to all that. And we worked closely with our CFTC partners to make sure that we were able to do that and that they were given the information they needed to make sure that what they were providing was in line with where the rest of the federal supports were going.
Thank you, Mr. Padfield. We now move on to Mr. Potzer for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order. So I just want to get on record. I will cede the floor to MP Patrick. I'm sorry, Chair. I'm sorry, Chair.
Duly noted and appreciate it, Mr.
Thank you. There you go.
Thank you,
On the
Mr.
budget day, this is rare.
Thank you, Mr. Dong, for your generosity of spirit there.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very much appreciated. Mr. Jones, I just want to start off by, thanking you for recognizing that, some ideologically driven decisions prior to the pandemic have put Western Canada into a precarious position and left a lot of these businesses in a vulnerable position when we entered the pandemic, and they were, the financial footing that they had before was systemically erased. I have a question for you regarding access to Community Futures buildings. How many Community Futures offices are there under your watch, or because being you were WD before, now you have the two organizations that you're responsible for at the moment. Just wondering, how many offices do you have under you?
I'm sorry, the question is how many CFs are there?
Yeah, how many Community Futures offices are there? Yeah.
Yeah, Hisham, do you know the answer to that? I don't know offhand the number of offices.
Yes, 90 CF offices in the West.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, throughout the last couple of years, how many of those offices were like closed to somebody coming in person to be able to apply for these programs?
So sorry, can you repeat the question?
Were any of these offices closed to the public being able to come in person to be able to apply for these programs? I'm just curious because we had the issue with Service Canada where all the offices were shut down and our constituency offices basically did all the work for Service Canada. So I'm just wondering, for Community Futures, for all these organizations, seeing how we have such a large number of applicants in Western Canada, I'm just wondering for the accessibility side of it, was there any issues with offices being shut down and people being unable to get help applying for programs?
Yeah, I'll just say, and Hisham can supplement, but I'm not aware of any complaints in the direct. I mean, it's a really good question, but I'm not aware of any complaints. It certainly wasn't raised with me. There were on our side of the program, of course, most people want to access the documents electronically, and there was a high degree of automation. But in terms of people going into CF offices, I'm not aware that there were any issues.
Yeah, I'm just curious, generally speaking, because the area that I serve, broadband access, and I'm sure all across the country, people would say that, broadband access is a problem, and it is a barrier at times to applying to specific programs, because sometimes the file size is so large, it takes forever to download and upload, and there's issues generally trying to apply. So that's why I was just curious if there's any issues. And maybe, Mrs. Hogan, did you find any issues when you're auditing with access to offices or resources being unavailable?
No, we did not reach out to the Community Futures themselves. There are hundreds of them, and so I can't comment on whether or not any of them remained open.
Okay. Thank you very much. I just kind of wanted to, expand upon a point that my colleague Eric Duncan was making with respect to paragraph, and this is for the Auditor General, with respect to paragraph 14.50. What was the total dollar amount of ineligible expenses that were approved?
This is a bit of a difficult question. I do have a dollar amount that would include paragraphs 49 and 50. And I think what I need to tell you is that we did sampling. And so the dollar amounts that I have relate to the 3 regional development agencies that we looked at. That were included in our audit. We extrapolated the elements that we thought should not have been paid, the ineligible expenses, but we found 25 cases, and we for a total dollar value of $2.9 million. That would cover both 49 and paragraph 50. When you extrapolate that, because our sampling was representative across just the 3 regional development agencies, it could, if the instance of occurrence remains the same, it could be up to approximately $55 million. But again, there were so many different methods of looking at applications across all of the regional development agencies that it was impossible for us to extrapolate it across all of the regional development agencies. So it really does relate to the 3 that we looked at.
And do you know, are those dollars being, because they were ineligible expenses, are they being recouped? So will the taxpayer get that money back or no?
A short
So
answer, please.
Absolutely. In our perspective, these are ineligible expenses because we believed that the national eligibility criteria and the national outline of what was eligible should not have been paid out. But the regional development agencies did not apply that consistently, as I said previously. At times they applied them different, and that's why this occurred. Hence why we have a difference in the agreement on our recommendation, right?
Thank you. We now move on for 2.5 minutes. Monsieur Lemire.
Merci.
Thank you again, Madam Chairperson. So, along the same lines, I'd like to float an idea that I care about, and I studied this in my riding, and it's been among a number of the demands from the Bloc Québécois in as far as the budget is concerned. So there's an important notion to be dealt with here. We need a fund by the regions and for the regions. Economic diversification as a way to innovate for electronic batteries and also in agri-foods and agriculture, perhaps even a tax credit for those living in rural areas. And also in the Bloc's platform is valuing the land, regionalize regional economic development programs by decentralizing the agency and providing money so that the regions can manage their priorities autonomously. The decisions regarding our regions shouldn't be taken from Ottawa, but in the regions themselves. So a regional development agency needs to meet regional needs, needs to be there on the ground at the grassroots. So for my question for Ms. Brassard from FedNor, are you in agreement that a decentralization might be a more effective way of meeting the region's needs, having their own funds so that they could make their own decisions with the community? If you could just scratch the surface a bit there, please, and elaborate. Response. Well, we have business offices across most regions in Quebec, including Abitibi-Témiscamingue, and our employees are partners of the region. They're fully aware of what the needs are of the regions, and they work with all the economic development stakeholders in those regions. Question. Well, I'd like more transparency or collaboration. I'm also miss the economic regional development offices that existed in Quebec for some time. But as far as the current program is concerned, and in the context of COVID-19, should this program be renewed to help our SMEs that are still being affected, maybe even make that program permanent? What do you think about that? Well, for the time being, the program is over, but we do have our regular programs that are still available, the purpose of which is to make the economy more green and more innovative, and I think that they're worth a look too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now for 2.5 minutes, we have Mr. Desjardins.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And again, thank you to all my colleagues. Good questions thus far. I do want to return to the issue of some of the reporting and the recommendations made by the Auditor General. So I'll point the attention to in the report, section 14.32 under the recommendation. It mentions for future programs, the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario, Southern Ontario, Prairies, Pacific, and the other regional development agencies should establish targeted levels of support for underrepresented groups and ensure that information is collected to use that information for decision making. I want to note that the agency partly agreed. This is concerning in some ways because we want to make sure that we have real progress on the GBA plus analysis on some of this work, and data is critical to that. I want to really remind, particularly Mr. Jones, the fact that not reporting, or not even collecting this information is a critical error in our ability to make good decisions. And it brings judgment on our institutions when we don't do this effectively, particularly in light of the other economic diversification agencies that have collected it. You know, it's a glaring fact that we're lagging behind in the Western diversification branch, in particular relation to the two other agencies. And so why has the agency only partly agreed to this recommendation?
Thank you. So, Honorable Chair, Committee, I accept the criticism on data collection. And bluntly, if we were going to do this all over again, we would have collected more data at the front end and less at the end, right? We would have collected more up front. Our approach was about kind of just being quick and easy for people. That was our approach, but it led to the situation we're in now, and I accept that criticism. And on that part, we would do it differently in a similar situation. Just to explain the partly agree, it relates to setting targets for this kind of program. So please understand, my comment's not about setting targets in general. And there are often programs, and we talked earlier about the importance of getting the number of Indigenous-owned businesses up in general. So there's places where targets make sense. But for an emergency backstop program, if we had tried up front to ration the program, we would have had to get it right, because if you ration the program, it means money is not available for people who don't meet however you rationed it. I don't know if that made sense, but the point is,
on a point of order, apparently the interpreter cannot provide interpretation because of the poor connection quality.
I see.
Interpretation isn't working.
Will it help if I speak slowly?
Your time is up. Okay. Monsieur Lemire, you can hear.
Oui.
It is still having the Wi-Fi connection problem. Okay. Perhaps.
Madam Chairperson, what I'm telling you is that the interpreter has told me that the internet connection of the witness is so poor that it makes it impossible for her to do her work, and the working conditions of these interpreters are important.
So I think it might be on our end. You're hearing French? Yeah, I'm on
Parfait.
English.
Donc, je pense qu'on peut poursuivre.
Well, please do proceed.
So let's move on to Mr. Patzner for 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, I'll go.
So now we're having Mr. Duncan for 5 minutes.
Musical chairs and microphones. Thanks, Madam Chair. Ms. Hogan, if I could follow up with you on section 14.5. Mr. Patzer had talked about that, the money allocated to ineligible applicants and kind of the status of repayment. Just in the interest of time, would you be willing to table with the committee the number of cases you identified that may have been ineligible, and then perhaps the percentage? You obviously didn't audit every single transaction or recipient, but the percentage perhaps of which ones were identified as ineligible expenses on the ones you audited. Would that be a reasonable request for the committee to receive?
I can probably give it to you now, but we can absolutely follow up with it in writing if you.
I appreciate that. There's just a few things I wanted to get on record, so I appreciate you doing that in the interest of time. And then to the economic development agencies, and in the interest of time, as opposed to asking all of you for a yes or no, I'll put it the other way. Would anybody object to you tabling with the committee the following? The number of cases you identified later in any reviews or perhaps through the Auditor General of any businesses that were ineligible or had ineligible expenses. So would you be willing to table with the committee the number of cases or recipients identified as not having met the or not using the money appropriately or as eligible? The status of the remedy of that. So are you looking to recoup that money, or are you just deeming that not an option at this time, and what your plan to do that is? And then if our committee were to ask in our report, would anybody object to regular intervals of those updates? So perhaps every quarter or a couple of times a year, updating those numbers on the number of cases and what those repayment statuses are. And I'm not talking specific names per se, but number of cases and what actions your agency is taking to rectify that. Would anybody have an issue with doing so? Don't see any objections, so I appreciate that. And I'll ask the same thing perhaps as well.
Point of order, Chair. Sorry. Through you, Chair, I just want to understand the member's question. Was it to the panelists or was it a question to the committee members?
Could you please clarify?
It'd be to the economic development agencies, the respective ones, if they could table that information to us in writing about the number of cases. So,
thank you.
If I could ask the same on high default rates, just in the interest of time as well. The Auditor General commented about high default rates that could be found or be potential. Ms. Hogan, would you be able to, over the course, I guess in the interim aspect you've reported in there, but would it be unreasonable to expect that our committee could get updates on a quarterly basis or a couple times a year, whatever's determined in our recommendations, to understand the progress on default rates and repayable loans that may be considered not repayable if the business has gone out of business or whatever the situation may be? Would that be something you deemed reasonable for our committee to have information on a regular basis?
I believe that's the kind of information that the regional development agency should be providing to you because repayment of the repayable portion of the loans is only to begin as of December of 2023. So there is no expected repayments at this time.
Noted. And I think maybe perhaps they might receive word if a business has gone out of business or defaulted in other ways. They may know early, but again, I think that regular reporting would be helpful, and I appreciate that. If I have, I think, opportunity for one last question, I'll go back to Mr. Padfield. Just on page 7 of the report, the percentages show that for FedDev of Southern Ontario, it had a higher percentage of rejected applications to some of the programs, 48%, compared to 41% of applications that were accepted. Southern Ontario in the agency was the only region that had a higher percentage of rejected applications than accepted. Could you just speak to that discrepancy, and perhaps would I ask if the eligibility criteria was somehow less clear for Southern Ontario as perhaps a factor to that?
Great. I don't think it's a discrepancy. I think it's the nature of the different economies. It's really hard to make comparisons between each of the regions. I think as Mr. Jones pointed out, the West was in much dire straits just before the pandemic. And when you're making a comparison to Southern Ontario, even within Southern Ontario, we had very different impacts from the pandemic. So there were a number of regions that were locked down for extended periods. And so our demand fluctuated significantly as lockdowns rotated around in various regions within the jurisdiction. So, and our refusal rate was just assessments of eligible costs and what have you. Back to the point of you had to have gone through all the various other programs and what have you for being able to show that you were ineligible or you were not able to meet your financing needs through some of the other mechanisms before you could actually come to us. So if our default rate was high, it was because they'd either received funding from one of the other support mechanisms, or they didn't have any other costs that weren't covered or would have been eligible. So I think it's a reflection of our good due diligence on the projects that came forward and our risk assessments of the investments that we're making as they came to us, which we did regularly and throughout the program.
Thank you. We now move on to Ms. Bradford for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you, witnesses, for appearing today. In my previous work in economic development with the City of Kitchener, I was quite familiar with the Digital Main Street program and working with Communitech as well. And I can vouch that many, many small businesses, retailers in particular, were saved through this program. It allowed them to quickly transition to online shopping, which they would never have been able to do before. So it was very effective in that way. Mr. Padfield, I was just wondering, this program was launched in a period of 7 weeks. Can you explain how that compares with the usual program launching for new programs? And how were you able to accomplish that so quickly in this time? I know there was urgency, but I just wondered if you could elaborate.
Yeah, I think we all recognize the emergency nature of the circumstance, and with a lot of companies having been closed their doors and not having other opportunities to, a lot of those retail companies not having other opportunities to find other sources of income as they're forced to shut down. So I think all the regional development agencies moved very quickly to stand up the program. We were conscious of the fact that we were going to get a much higher volume, lower dollar client than we normally do. We served 3 times as many clients within the pandemic period than we do normally. So we were able to leverage a digital system that we'd been advancing within the agency. So we were actually able to not do this, but paper-based, and to be able to move forward the number of projects we were able to put in a digital system that allowed us to do and to integrate some controls into that to make sure that we didn't see duplications of bank accounts, we didn't see duplications of business number, and so we were able to bring in that digital system. So we were able to move forward quickly and to make sure we're putting the kind of controls in place that were needed to ensure that we weren't funding folks that shouldn't be funded by the agency through the course of this activity.
Well, thank you for that. Now, I want to address this next question to each 3 of the agencies, please. So if you could, at one at a time, please answer the following question. How did you deal with the not-for-profits in your particular area? And what do you feel you got with the value for money in funding them? If you could each answer that for me, please, that would be wonderful. I'm not sure who wants to start.
I could start if you'd like. We leveraged, the not-for-profits were supported in 2 ways. Partway through the program, they became eligible for support through the program itself to ensure that they had liquidity to continue them. So there was a circumstance we provided about $5 million to keep about 20 different not-for-profits functioning and being able to support businesses within the region. We also leveraged 14 other not-for-profit organizations to help us deliver recovery activities. That included the Digital Main Street, included working with the Toronto Regional Board of Trade to help the digitization of other companies that were, small manufacturers or the second and third floor kind of Main Street companies. Through that work, we were able to support 39,000 different SMEs across the region with that host of activities that we were able to leverage. We also leveraged some organizations to help us deliver support to underrepresented groups, including women and official languages communities within the region. So we were very happy to have, we have a deep, strong ecosystem in Southern Ontario, and we were happy to be able to leverage some of those partners to help us advance this initiative.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jones, would you like to answer that's how it worked out in your area?
Thank you. So, essentially the main program provided funds, and through the nonprofits, we were able to provide supporting services for businesses. A lot of what we focused on was dealing with the underrepresented groups, right? So we reached out to Indigenous business development services, social, small business service centers, entrepreneurs with disabilities program, et cetera. In total, 164 nonprofit projects ended up delivering services to 21,000 businesses. And it was an important part of the mix because people needed things other than just money to get through the crisis.
For that, appreciate that. And then finally, Ms. Brazard.
We had similar results. We went to particularly 6 non-for-profit who helped us in the delivery. And we had the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center. We had the Société de Développement Communautaire de Kirkland. So it was also a way to reach out to more diversified clientele and make sure that nobody was left behind or forgotten.
Super. So finally,
thank you very much.
Oh, I guess I'm done. Thank you so much.
And now we move on to our 3rd round for 5 minutes. Mr. Lawrence.
Ms. Bradford, was your question brief? Would you like to, as you guys have been very kind to us, would you like to finish off? Or?
Oh, well, thank you. I was just going to ask, Mr. Padfield, given the high volume of projects in such a short period of time, were you able to accomplish that with the same staff complement, or was it just involving a lot of overtime? That's short, I think.
Yeah, we did add some additional staff to help us out, and we have additional staff that'll help us when it comes to the recoveries time as well. So we did add 30 or 40 staff to help us do this, and we'll carry it forth as we go in the back end of the program as we look to closing up files and recovery.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lawrence, for that.
Thank you. My questions will focus around paragraph 53, and that talks about the selection criteria. I have concerns that as many of you who would have business experience or have known in business, that business owners are often working extremely hard and they don't have time to even look up to ask for the government grants. I noticed that some nonprofits were invited while some were not. What do you, and I'm not alleging any misconduct here, I'm just, I think there are challenges in making sure that all businesses are aware of some of the solutions that you offer. What proactive steps do you take to make sure that businesses in the communities are aware of the programs you offer? I'll direct that at Mr. Patfield to start.
No, thank you for the question. So we have we leverage our social media for sure. So whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or what have you, we make sure we're getting the word out. We also have a whole host of internal contacts that we reach out in terms of that big ecosystem I was talking about. We have 36 different public or institutions or post-secondary institutions within the region. There's about 130 different incubators and accelerators that we reached out to explain all this. We also ran technical sessions across the region. So we ran 15 different virtual sessions to explain and give details to businesses, because I agree, the last thing any business wants to do is fill out a government form. And so the more we can make things smooth for them, the better. And of course, that CFDC network was also, the 36 different CFDCs were leveraging their local networks where they have contacts. So we've engaged everyone from the chambers of commerce to onward. So
I guess the question. Sorry, my apologies for cutting you off. The question I have, I guess more precisely, is that when we look at other economic development agencies across the world, they will do some very accurate, very involved analysis in terms of looking at their own economies, both locally and nationally, as to see where gaps are and make sure that where the taxpayers' dollars are precisely invested, aren't just based on who applies and based on their awareness of, and I apologize for the flipness, but based on their review of Twitter. And so we have we have that information, I think a lot of it in StatsCan. Do you take that information and say, this is what the community of Orono, this is what the community of Port Hope needs, this is what the community, this is how we can work with local mayors, local individuals, and make sure that we're precisely investing those dollars? If not, I think that might be a suggestion for you.
Right. Well, we don't, far be it from us to tell a region what they need or don't need, but we do that regular analysis, and that's more in our core business. I want to delineate between the emergency relief program that we're talking about here versus our ongoing efforts to develop economic opportunities for the future, right? And that involves, prior to the pandemic, we did 20 different roundtables across the region, deep communications, the deputy and I and Linda were across the region with hundreds of different stakeholders talking about what those regional needs were. I don't know if you realize, but while we were a temporary agency created in 2009, in 2019, the current government made us a permanent agency, and we were just launching ourselves off as a new permanent agency and not a sort of an ongoing running program. And those 20 roundtables were really meant to help us do exactly what you're talking about, is building up that deep regional knowledge and understanding what for particular regions are needed to going forward, right? So I think it's really important. You're completely right. Those are kind of analysis. That's quite different, though, from an emergency relief project, which is what the RRF was, which was based on needs from different organizations. And we weren't being prescriptive about who we thought had needs and who didn't.
Thanks very much. Just on that question, though, without that information, I'm just bothered a little bit by procedural fairness with respect to the, and if it wasn't your organization, perhaps the organization, because it doesn't say in the report which one it was, why certain organizations would have been invited and certain ones wouldn't have been.
So I think early on in the pandemic, I think when I talked about, we first initially thought this program was going to be 3 months. We got to get help out and go whatever. We were approached by, so using that digital mainstream example, those organizations approached us and said, we've got the capacity here. We've been running a smaller version of this program. We think we could do some more good in this. Invest Ottawa and Communitech both approached this and said, we've got numbers of students. We ended up using 1,400 different students to help us deliver digital advice to companies across the region. Those organizations approached us when we went back to them and said, could you collaborate together and pull something bigger together? They produced the Digital Main Street project, which ended up having, 4 different organizations involved. And they went on to deliver support to over 30,000 organizations within the region, providing some of that necessary activities and support for companies that had never been digital before, or to refining companies' digital presence so that they could actually move it to international markets, and to refine it and expand their coverage and their business model. So that's a bit of the approach that happened in that case.
Thank you. And we now move on to Mr. Patzer. I just would like to acknowledge that Ms. Shanahan has agreed to cede her time to Mr. Patzer for 5 minutes, and members have agreed to end the meeting at 12:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you once again.
Just on a point of order, Madam Chairperson, I agreed that there would be a third turn. So if you give me to Patzer 5 minutes and you finish at 12:30, I won't have my third round question. Perhaps we could finish at 12:35 so that the Bloc Québécois and NDP can speak.
Okay, I think we have unanimous consent here. We can agree to have the other Mr. Lemire and Mr. Dallaire finish the round. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Patzer.
I'm going to start with the Auditor General. The report says that members of Parliament and the public should have access to transparent, clear, and useful information on the results achieved by federal departments and agencies. So the data collection process throughout the program went back to ISED, and for that reason, I do find it kind of interesting that they're not here today so that we can ask them. But I'm just wondering, do you think it would be valuable to gather information from ISED that would be beneficial to this study?
I'm going to look to Philippe to see if I've gotten this correct, but ISED was responsible for gathering all the data from the regional development agencies and then making a global picture, which is why we included them in the recommendation about gathering data and looking for consistency. They can only do so much. It still comes back to the collection of that data and having it be more consistent across all the RDAs so that you can roll it up properly. It includes having targets if you want to actually be able to measure and determine whether or not outcomes have been achieved. So there are some gaps there, and that's why the recommendation is addressed to both ISED and the regional development agencies.
Right, but they have all this data and information. Do you think it'd be valuable to this committee if ISED were actually to come here and take some questions from the committee?
Well, I always believe that every entity included in one of our audits should be called to a committee in order to help determine the best way to improve a program, to improve program delivery for Canadians.
Right on. And I guess that would include the Privy Council's office as well, too, because they're quoted in 14.57 as being having received information and data as well, too. You think it would be beneficial to have the Privy Council come?
I would leave that up to the chair and the membership to decide who best to invite as witnesses.
Yeah. Good answer. I guess it's kind of elaborating on the point that was made by Mr. Lawrence to the different RDAs here. I mean, like what were there specific criteria? I know Mr. Padfield kind of alluded to it a little bit, but were there specific criteria that you guys looked at when you were inviting specific nonprofits to apply versus others who you were not reached out to apply?
Just if maybe I'll take a stab and hope the connection works on this one. There is one thing I want to flag for the committee, which is we often think about like procurement as a comparison for what fairness looks like. And the thing with a standard procurement process is businesses when they're doing a competitive bidding, they lose money on the bids that fail, right? But they recoup it by charging more for bids that succeed. When you're working with nonprofits, that doesn't apply. So if they're in a competitive process and they spend $20,000 on a bid, if you will, or an application, and it fails, they're out of pocket. So we don't actually get the same kind of demand from nonprofits for competitive processes. And I'm not making an argument against fairness or transparency. I'm just saying, it's actually not kind of the way it works. It's not really what people want necessarily. They do want to know what's going on. They want to be able to knock on our door and say, hey, I've got an idea. But on this one, we talked to basically everyone who might be able to help. And we sort of know who they are, right? I mean, people who work in the spaces, and reached out to them and said, and remember, we were in a massive rush, right? Do you have something that you have to offer? And the word was out quite broadly on the nonprofit side. So I take the point that's been raised here. But it wasn't that we decided who we weren't going to talk to. We basically reached out to everyone that we thought, might possibly be able to help. And people kind of like that process because they know they're not wasting their time trying to put in a bid and then having to eat the cost if it's unsuccessful.
Okay. Yeah. No. Appreciate that. That definitely helps. Just lastly here, just when we're talking about the amount of people that applied to this program, particularly in Western Canada, and this was kind of a last resort program, but there were so many applicants. Just wondering, were there so many applicants? Was there also a contributing factor that just they didn't qualify for other programs, or that other programs, just weren't maybe targeted specifically for organizations in Western Canada? Do you think that there was a discrepancy between the East and the West on which programs worked and which ones didn't?
A short answer, please.
Yeah, it's likely a combination of the amount of need, the vulnerability of people's books also made them less likely to be able to get loans elsewhere because of their financial state. And then, I think legitimate questions can be asked about, the availability of programs in the West and just quality of the outreach in general.
Thank you. And we now go to Monsieur Lemire for 2.5 minutes.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. My question is directed at the Auditor General. The regional development agencies agreed in part to the recommendations, 1445 section of your report. How do you respond to that? Well, just let me have a look at which recommendation you're referring to. Then don't agree that it was appropriate funding in all cases and that the provincial programs, so there was a weighing up of the desired outcomes and the actual objectives. Well, its response, as I mentioned, the program was developed in the pandemic with very clear criteria, and it was our expectation that when political decisions are taken, that the government then implement the programs based on those. Now, if there were very clear eligibility criteria, and they, however, were not applied consistently across all regional development agencies. Now, then you can put the emphasis on the various priorities and needs of the regions. And that's why I believe the policy wasn't followed, thus our recommendation. The RDAs don't entirely agree with us, however. Well, I understand that, but it's interesting to see how we can try and meet the objectives of their mission statements. Another question about the agencies. Did they take a risk by providing funding to companies that were not financially viable, and some companies that had even paid dividends to their shareholders? And I'm referring to, do you believe that they took overly big risks in that regard? Response. Well, once again, the criteria were very clear about what eligible spending would be, and that was clearly spelled out in the program. The agencies applied that inconsistently, unfortunately, and yes, that increases the risk, and that does not, in our opinion, follow the policy. And what will be the upshot of those kinds of occurrences?
Thank you. Thank you. And we now turn to Mr. Desjardins for 2.5.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I want to thank again all the witnesses. I know this has been a difficult study. There was a difficult time that we as a country had to endure, so I thank you all for your service. But it's incumbent upon our committee and ourselves as elected officials to make sure that the taxpayer and regular Canadians understand how this process works and where this money is going. I want to address Section 14.49 and 14.50, which I believe to be probably the most problematic and largest issues facing this program. To read them out, in our samples, we found the following examples where funding was provided, but the application did not, but the application should have been rejected because they did not satisfy the program's eligibility criteria. I want to thank Ms. Hogan for very clearly outlining the problem here, which is there was a clear criteria and there was a failure by the organizations to apply that criteria. And we expect that those regional development organizations follow through with understanding the impact of this, because when we look at the findings under 14.50, there was repayment of shareholder loans this money was used for. Taxpayer dollars went to shareholders' loans, financial support to family members, and the purchasing of new vehicles. These are ineligible expenses, but they're massive expenses. This is a glaring failure of this program that I hope we can remedy. In some instances, cases of businesses had no employees, but still were still allowed in this program. Cases of applications that did not previously apply to other organizations as well, and cases of applicants that were not in operation before March 2020. That is extreme, and I really want to make sure that you understood Ms. Hogan's report on this and how important it is to truly satisfy the application of a fair criteria that doesn't end up with taxpayer dollars going to the repayment of shareholder loans. You understand how that's a difficult thing for Canadians to understand. Will the regional development organizations remedy this issue, or are we just going to simply allow the shareholders to have their money?
If I may, on the shareholder issues, it's not a case that I'm aware of, but it just reminded that in those instances, the loans are repayable. So we'll recoup the money. On the issue
Are taxpayers getting interest on this? Like, we're giving us shareholder loans.
A very short answer.
On the issue of no jobs, I think that's it's an early stage, and it was an issue of a full-time employee versus a part-time employee, and that situation was remedied. And as far as a business that was not in operation, there had been, to my knowledge, a change in ownership, and the business being seasonal. It started with the new ownership on the new season with the new ownership, and I think those were issues where we had disagreement with the Auditor General on how to look at those cases.
Thank you, Madame Brassard. And I would like to thank all the witnesses for appearing today. And is it the will of the committee to adjourn the meeting?
Merci, Madame la Présidente, pour votre rigueur.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Thank you to the technical staff and the interpreters.
Meeting adjourned.